In Chapter 13, we learn about property, the laws of both real and personal property. While these things can apply to our personal lives and certainly are relevant there, it is also important as business people that we understand the property rights and laws as well. One of the things that struck me was the information about the what is a tangible and intangible objects, and things that are considered fixtures within a business and things that are considered trade fixtures. So it reminded me of selling our first home, and there were items that were in the home as we consulted with the realtor that we knew we had wanted to take with us. That would have been considered fixtures. So we were told to remove those before we placed the house on the market. So somewhat similar in a business situation. However, there are also those trade fixtures, as the book had noted, that um, are things that, like freezers and that type of thing, that would be used specifically for the business that was in that leasing or owning that particular property, but may not be used going forward, and certainly could be negotiated by those people down the line. But um, while they might be affixed, they're not considered actual fixtures. They would be considered trade fixtures, so that individual would be able to take those items with them when they were departing that particular piece of property. So a lot of this reading, I felt, within this chapter is certainly applicable in personal lives, which is very important for individuals to realize, but it's also applicable in the business realm. Um, Another area that I picked up on was in regards to leasehold estates, and many businesses lease the facilities that they are in, and so understanding um, what your rights are as a leaseholder, perhaps what your rights are as the property owner in those situations are very important. There was a business in our local town, and they had leased a facility for a very long period of time, had no intentions of moving. They liked their location, but due to some changes within the the owners of the property, um, basically they decided not to renew their lease due to some water usage. They felt that the water use being utilized by this particular business was excessive, um, no matter what the business did to limit. They were a coffee shop, so clearly they needed water. Um, but it really took the town by surprise. Many people came out in kind of protest, if you will, against the owners of this particular property, in support of the people who were leasing the property. Ultimately, it was the owner's decision, and they had every right to make that decision within the lease agreement that they had. So I think that sort of brought to light for people, the importance of even what seems like a minor detail within a lease agreement. So all of these things are certainly important as businesses are either looking to move into a property, or owners of that property are looking to lease that property out. Knowing the different types of co-ownerships and um, the abilities to utilize co-ownerships and what those exactly mean, and who in a co-ownership situation is allowed to have rights for transfer of property, that sort of thing. Those are all very important as well. Um, Understanding the differences between co-ops and cooperatives. And in this particular scenario, it reminded me again, it's sort of a more personal situation, but I have a relative who lives in New York City. And so a lot of the properties that she and her husband have looked at are co-ops. And basically, you have interest in the apartment building, but you actually do not own any property per se, except the apartment that you're in. And um, the land itself is actually controlled by the city. So even though you may own the unit, even the co-op itself doesn't own the land. So it seems like a very risky or potentially risky investment situation, because at any time the the city could, kind of pull back ownership of that land, and then you would have nothing potentially. Um, so, or put you in a predicament where maybe you would only get, so much compensation for that particular unit. So, what would be considered fair market value at the time, which, as we know, those things change, and so it could change to your advantage or to your disadvantage. So, understanding all of the various types of properties and the, making sure that you have the appropriate things signed. If you're transferring property, making sure that as a business that you are investing in property that maybe is not necessarily subject or at risk as far as any kind of zoning issues, making sure that the zoning for a particular area that you're looking for can actually accommodate the business that you're looking to put in. Due to various zoning laws, there are certain areas that you cannot do certain types of business. In our area, I am familiar with a woman who bakes cakes, that kind of thing, and she wanted to do it out of her home. But her area is not zoned for that type, it's her house, and it's not zoned for that type of business. So that's not something that she would be allowed to do without a variance, which in her investigation she wasn't going to be able to get. So, making sure that as you are developing your business or investing in certain areas, that you have an idea of what your abilities are, what your limitations may be, and what that may mean for you down the line. So I did find this particular chapter of interest both personally and professionally. I definitely think that this is great information for everybody to be aware of, and especially as they're venturing into various businesses or business industries, knowing what is personal property, and how that can be transferred from person to person, making sure that you're investing in appropriate areas and situations that will be conducive to your business.